Jakarta is the capital of Indonesia, and it's home to more than 10 million people. It is also sinking. So the government is building a brand new capital on the island of Borneo. With more on this, we're joined by Dan Riskin. He is CTV's science and technology expert for another edition of This Week in Science. Dan, good morning.
Good morning.
So why is Indonesia building a brand new capital rather than just giving the title to a city that already exists?
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon that's going on right now. You see a lot of political power. You see a lot of conversations around sustainability. But really, when it comes down to it, Jakarta is in a real mess because not only is sea level rising around the world, but Jakarta is draining its groundwater so quickly that the ground is actually subsiding. The whole city is sinking up to a foot a year.
Wow.
And a lot of it is below sea level. And so one possible solution that the president of Indonesia has put forward is to just pick up and move somewhere else. And so he's picked this spot in Borneo, which is a whole different island from where the capital is right now. And he's saying, let's just start afresh. Let's make a sustainable city. Let's have a city with transit. Let's have a city with renewable power, with a green economy, and let's just leave what we've messed up and start anew.
It sounds like a utopia. It's going to be called, now correct me if I have this wrong, Nusantara? And
yes.
Yes, and logistically, what kind of work goes into building a brand new city? If you're moving 10 million people, that's housing, schools, hospitals, transit.
Yeah, and it's not a sort of like we're going to move on Tuesday, so everybody pack your bags. We're going to move all 10 million people. There's talk about sort of the gradual need to sort of get the first buildings in place. What's happened so far is a lot of sort of clearing of the forest around where the city would go. They're careful to point out this is not pristine rainforest that they're cutting down, that these are already forests that have replaced the pristine natural forests that were there. These are now eucalyptus forests that are being cut down. But a lot of roads have been put in place, but the buildings haven't shown up yet. And this is one of the things that has a lot of people a little nervous about whether or not this plan is actually going to land, because it all comes down to sort of the political will of the president right now. And that president's term has to end this year. And so what we need to have is a president who sort of picks up the torch after this one, who says, yes, this is still the direction we're going to go, and we do want to finish getting everyone there. But there's talk of 2 million people in the first couple of years, and then trickling forward after that.
Yeah, you touched on this before, Dan, that the officials say this new capital, there's lots of green claims. It's going to be a sustainable forest city. It wants to be carbon neutral by 2045, but there are real concerns and questions from environmentalists.
Yeah, there are. Borneo is it is unlike any other place in the world. It is the third largest island in the world, and it is a place with elephants and orangutans and incredibly rare birds, bats, mammals, insects. The animals that live there and the plants that live there are found nowhere else. And so anytime you talk about sort of establishing a city of 10 million people in the middle of that, it's going to raise concerns. On the other hand, people need to live somewhere. And the city where they live right now is sinking into the ocean. And so you need to find a solution to this. And so they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But certainly when you think of the sort of pristine habitats that are left in the world and the animals like orangutans that can't be replaced, that need a place to live, one has to say, well, maybe places like Borneo need to be off the list for something like this. And on the other hand, it's part of Indonesia. It's their country. And so who are we to say where they can and cannot put their cities? And so it raises a lot of issues, but certainly environmentalists are very nervous about this.
Dan, we have about 30 seconds left, but I'm so curious to know what's going to happen to the millions of people who live in Jakarta right now.
That has not been clearly addressed. And so this isn't sort of a military operation where people are going to be told you have to move on this date. But the hope is that they create a utopia with transit and green energy and walking paths, and it becomes a place where everyone wants to live. And of course, the political hope is that everyone will just voluntarily move from one city to the other. But of course, things can get tricky in the details. And the most important sort of first step is whether this thing gets built to start with. So we'll see. We'll be watching very carefully to see how this progresses.
Environmental, political, and people concerns all in one. Dan, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.